God, why have you forsaken me? God, please forgive them, for they know not what they do. Which historical figure said this? And do you sense the irony in this statement? God, why have you forsaken me? And God, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Do you sense the irony? Please leave your answer in the comment section down below. You know, people have contradictions. I mentioned that yesterday. We all have contradictions. And sometimes we go through life believing that our contradictions are never going to be exposed. Nobody's going to ever pick up on those contradictions. We don't want them to pick up on our contradictions, lest us come across as people who have faults, lest us come across as people who have vulnerabilities. We don't have any vulnerabilities. We're not vulnerable. We're not volatile. We're strong. We're not. Actually, we're not. You know, I've seen in my lifetime some shocking things. The most striking thing I've ever seen in my lifetime was this strong, gutsy, big shot like, arrogant fellow who returned from a flight abroad in a vegetative state. He went somewhere, and on the flight, he had a stroke. And because he had a stroke, he was never the same. For 15 years, his boisterous, arrogant, egoistic, bullying, um, authoritative figure quite literally crumbled, crumbled, fell to pieces. What is the ego? What is the ego? Seriously, what is the ego? What happened to this strong figure? Why did he crumble? Wasn't he supposed to last forever? Ah, we don't last forever. That's okay. We don't last forever. You know, I've seen in my lifetime some interesting things. Another example. This particular person was very unforgiving towards anybody they came across. They were never ever able to say 3 words: I am sorry. They couldn't say those 3 words. They were never sorry. They were never forgiving towards others. And they never did anything wrong. This person in particular, she never did anything wrong. She lived in a kind of paradigm of quite literally believing in her lies. Believing in her lies. This person lived with lies, believed in her lies, and she was so drunk on her pretenses that she's beyond repair. Beyond repair. Now, we should never say that. Never ever should say a person's beyond repair, because nobody's beyond repair. You could always change. You could always go into a spiritual path and change and hence see the light, if you like. True that. But when I say somebody's beyond repair, I mean that they come across as irreparable. They come across as individuals who are so drunk in their state of delusion, who are so deluded in their arrogancy, egoistic. And I mean egoistic from a arrogant perspective, because there's different ways of looking at the word ego. Ego could either mean you're afraid of taking yourself out of your comfort zone, which could sound very different to somebody who's egoistic from a big shotty kind of perspective, from a um, showing off kind of perspective. So, yeah, this person in particular had a mix of both. Very egotistical, very unforgiving towards others, and often enough, not often enough, it is quite literally so that when a person is unforgiving towards others, they're not forgiving towards themselves. They're not. If you're not forgiving towards somebody else, you're not forgiving towards yourself, and you're struggling on a deep level. This person in particular was so drunk in her, so deeply seated and deeply rooted in her state of delusion, in her state of being unforgiving towards others, to the point that she probably didn't realize how unforgiving she was towards herself as well. Because that's what tends to happen. But why do people do that? It could change in a flash. This guy who had a stroke, yeah, on a flight back from abroad, he was gone. His arrogance, his ego, his bullying demeanor, his coercive style of behavior was practically gone on a single flight in a moment of a stroke. All he had was a stroke. He was never the same. He sang beautifully, couldn't sing anymore. He had talents. Most of them went to the wayside, gone thereafter. Why would a person be such a show off? Be so full of ego? You know it could quite literally crumble in a minute. So why would you be egotistical? Who gains from it? Do you gain from it? Do people not realize yet that it could crumble in a minute? But no. It's just how it works. It's how people are. People don't realize that it's not here to last. I'm on a bus today, and I saw a child turn to his father and say, "Dad, why don't you take me on a different bus? I don't want to be on this bus." And I thought to myself, what is it to learn from that? I thought to myself, this child has no problem, has no qualms telling his father how he feels. He's not worried, and he didn't even think about Jessica, who's sitting over there, who thinks to herself, that's a child who's being a little mean to his father. His father planned this trip for him, and perhaps that's not fair. He didn't take me into consideration. He didn't take anybody into consideration for that purpose. And he wasn't afraid of stepping out of his comfort zone, knowing that there's people around him who heard what he said. You get my gist here? A child is not afraid of taking himself out of his comfort zone. A child is not afraid of false pretenses. It's not afraid of the ego. So, why do some people actually think that children are lesser beings, less intelligent than adults? Again, it's the adult's ego playing out, whereby they think that they will put children and treat them like little ones, and treat them in a manner which is inferior. Treat them as if they're not as understanding and as smart as us, upstanding, mature adults. When in reality, adults are not mature. In many ways, they're not more mature. They're not. It's a pretense. It's another pretense. It's another lie, which people in the deluded state, drunken with power, drunken with way past beyond repair in their inability to be forgiving towards themselves and others, and inability to be realistic and truthful of the facts around them, that they have hence gone and totally misunderstood children. I've seen this in so many areas of my life as well, but I'm not going to go into that this particular point today. My point is the ego. My point is that, even the ego, the whole concept of the ego is complicated, and it's not as simple as many of us think it is. And this historical figure who said, God, why have you forsaken me? And God forgive them, for they know not what they do, said these two statements, which almost sound like a contradiction, but they're not a contradiction, because you're actually asserting and expressing, all of us as human beings, we have contradictions. We have things which are not in full alignment. Also goes along with yesterday's video when I spoke about us having contradictions. Yes, we have contradictions, and it's okay to have contradictions. It's okay. It's not an actual contradiction if you decipher it and you discern it properly. Many of our contradictions are not really contradictions. If you discern them and look at them in different ways, you realize that they're not perfect contradictions. They're not actually contradictions. And often enough, they're not even contradictions at all. Sometimes they are contradictions, though. And that's not a contradiction either. That's my amazing message today. If you enjoyed today's video, smash that like button. Feel free to share away. And please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section down below on what you think about contradictions. Does my last statement today sound like a contradiction? Why do you think it is? Why do you think it's not a contradiction? And what do you think I meant by it? I look forward to seeing you after I finish this video. Actually, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, because tomorrow I'll be putting on my next video. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and enjoy your Saturday. Enjoy your Shabbat. Enjoy your weekend. I love you so much.